All right, everybody. It is another Tuesday, and this is the MSP Initiative Live. I feel like he's been gone for a long time because he's a busy guy, but welcome back. You know, the other half of the operation here, Mr. Ken Patterson. Welcome back, Ken.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute, George. It's been a hot minute.
Yeah.
But at least we get to spend some time together in September. So let's not forget that fact. And I'm sure we're going to have some big stories when we drive across the country and get back to our initial spot again. Like, we thought those days were over, but looks like you and I are going to be doing Willie Nelson's on the road again together with our comedic trips from one place to another, carrying our stuff to make sure the events go off without a bang. And man, but yeah, it's been a hot minute. I think it's been 5 weeks, and I've been home for 2.5 days in the middle of the 5 weeks. Now, of course, I did have vacation in the middle of there, which was great. But, when you go on vacation, do you typically walk, 10 miles a day? Probably not.
I mean, but you went to Disney World, Ken. That's kind of expected. Oh,
it's expected. And listen, I love it when I can eat around the world, at Epcot and still lose weight because I'm walking so much. So it's actually it's a win-win.
Okay. All right. I mean, so how much weight did you lose?
I think I actually, I'm not a big scale guy. Like, I should probably check the scale, but it scares me too often. But I'm pretty sure this time I did more this time than I did last time. Last time we went a couple of years ago, I actually came back and I lost 8 pounds, and I had eaten a lot on that trip. So, when you walk around Epcot and they do the little, they're small portions, but you get so many of them as you walk around. And then, of course, when you do the normal meals, but maybe I'm not doing as much like, I'm on the road driving and I stop in a fast food place, because that's not happened clearly, right? You're getting decent food and at most of the places you're going, but the walking definitely helps. If I'm walking, here's my meter when I came back from Disney, right? The step meter. And then when I got home, it's like, down here, because too much walking in my basement here while I'm working.
Yeah, no, totally get it. Well, I mean, right after you left, it's Disney. I think I saw something said Disney's changed their entire system. They're offering, this new Fast Pass system that's not called Fast Pass anymore. Like, all sorts of stuff changed.
I knew that was coming, and that's what they were feeling us out for, which is why, and everybody's freaking out. Oh my God, there's no Fast Passes. Well, what they were doing was testing the palette for how badly people would want the Fast Pass, because now they're going to charge for it. And then they'll test that palette. Disney does a lot of testing. They want to see, they lost a lot of money as big as they are. They lost a ton of money with COVID hitting and how they were closed for a long time, including California. So my theory is they tested us. And by the way, at the end of this vacation, I was like, I will pay anything for a Fast Pass. I literally was like, I told my wife, I'm like, look, they're gonna charge for Fast Passes. I would definitely pay for it. It makes life easier. And sure enough, as you mentioned, they came out with this, $15 Fast Pass, and there's going to be a $20 Fast Pass for the higher end stuff, because you can get in lines that are, 3 hours for some of these high end. And by the way, I've never waited in a line that long ever, but, we have a whole system, even without the Fast Passes, that we did really well, even this last trip. But I wouldn't mind in the middle of the day being able to go on to a ride that, like the Avatar, Flight of Passage ride that usually has an hour-long wait or longer. So yeah, we had to do that one first thing in the morning, early rope drop, and go through the whole thing to get up there, and we got right in.
Got it. Wow. Sounds like you had a good time.
Yeah, had a blast, got some more color, even though with sunblock, whatever on my face, I still get roasted, and it adds to the color. Hopefully it doesn't add to anything else.
Yeah, totally.
But, I came back, I jumped right into an event. I was home for 1 day and then went right to San Antonio for exchange. So on the road.
Totally understand. So let's talk about exchange. So that
you got it. You got it. I mean, I along with a lot of our, we have certain circles, right, from a standpoint of the community that are always involved with the community, so our folks that are always involved in the community, a lot of them were there. And the It was a great event. It really was. Obviously, the numbers were lower than your usual exchange event, but they had estimated those numbers, and we had about, I want to say it was about 220 partners that were there. The keynotes were really good. Brett Mesh informed me that the content in the rooms was better. He felt like he got good content, which made it worthwhile for him because he was a little on the fence about going to another one with everything that's going on. And he said the content was really, really good. I don't see that anymore clearly because I'm on the other side of the fence. Speaking from a standpoint of the keynotes that I witnessed, the keynotes were really good. You know, got to see Tonto from Benghazi, you know, the 13 Hours movie that was based on Benghazi. He was one of the actual Marines that was on the ground when the whole thing happened. And that was just I'll start tearing up if I start talking about the whole story, but his story was amazing. He had to crush it into 25 minutes, which he did a great job. And yeah, it was just some of those sessions were just really, really good. And it was, you know, you say, well, what's that have to do with the IT channel? Well, it's about never giving up. With everything that's going on with, you know, COVID, whether it be your business during COVID, all the things you have going on, this guy's message just resonated. Never give up. He just kept saying it. And he went through, you know, his life, not just the military, but his life. He's been through 2 divorces. He actually tried to commit suicide 3 times with all the mental things that he has going on in his head, and still pulls it together, writes a book, does the movie, and does these speaking engagements. So the guy's been to hell and back for sure, and just had a great story. And he lightened it up. In the middle of the story, he was like, and that's when we realized we lost our IT guy. And everybody just cracked up laughing like, oh man, like he had us all sucked in. And then said that. And then, of course, he had to go back to the fact that they did lose people, and it was really good. And yes, Keith Nelson was there in San Antonio as well. I did meet him. He had some great stories as well. So, yeah, the story was great. The underlying message of never give up just resonated with me, and I think it resonated with a lot of people. I got to meet him afterwards and talk to him for a little bit, and just a down-to-earth, really cool guy. And tried to minimize what he did by saying, yeah, you guys are doing the same thing, right? You're in the front lines taking care of these businesses. I'm like, difference is I got a paper cut. You may have gotten shot somewhere. So just an amazing story. I could go on and on about that. The event itself was very good. And again, it's a combination, right? We're all like dying to get back out. So people were definitely in that mode as well, where people were just so excited. But I do believe from my experience of doing these, I mean, this is probably my 15th exchange event, maybe more, because we were doing 2 a year as an MSP, and now with PAX 8. This was one of the better ones. And I think it might have been because we were all pulled together. You know, the community is a lot tighter, I believe. They were still I don't want to be, I'll be gentle with this, George. I don't know. I don't know how to be gentle with this one, George.
Just put it out there, man.
Your non-community type folks at the event. You still saw some of those where, you know, they weren't really wrapped up in the community. They were there to just drink and have a party and not really involved with the partners or the vendors, you know, on both sides. There was still some of those, but it got way overshadowed by the group of the community that pulled together. When things go crazy or sideways, everybody kind of sticks together type of mentality. So loved seeing all that, loved seeing all the people and pulling back together and seeing people in person. As you know, when we on the Channel Strong Tour, like first time seeing people again, we were like, yes, this is what it feels like. And I didn't want to say the N word, because we're all talking about that N word, right? Oh, it's normal, blah, blah, blah. I just said, we're back. We're back. Like, let's just call it that, what it is. It was a really good time, and had a phenomenal time. Like I said, I met Keith, great guy, great stories.
How about that, Keith? In person, huh, buddy?
And he was definitely a nicer guy in person. I never really got to talk to him before, but talked to him. And,
I'm gonna let him defend himself now. Here you go.
He doesn't have to defend himself. I said he's even nicer in person.
Keith, go ahead. You can come to the party there, buddy.
Where is he?
He can talk. He's unmuted.
Am I unmuted?
You're unmuted. Oh yeah.
By the way, all I came online was to ask George if he saw that preseason game last week.
I didn't even ask him that.
Keith, are you talking about the 35-0 New England Patriots against the Philadelphia Eagles? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, yeah, that's the game.
Yeah. Well, number one, I sold my tickets to that game. So preseason, sorry, not going to waste my time. But somebody bought them, so it wasn't me, thankfully. and number two, the starting quarterback went to the hospital before the game. So, it's a preseason game. They rolled out their very well-paid $3.6 million veteran backup, and it was a dumpster fire. But it didn't count, so it's okay. How's your guy doing? How's Mr. Dak doing?
I don't know for sure. I saw some preseason. He looked good, but then they start resting him, and now it's like scope creep. It's his ankle, then it's his shoulder, now it's his back, and it has me worried. Elliott looks like a stud. I mean, he really cut some weight. He looks faster, quicker. Maybe his attitude has changed, ever since we paid him.
He got the money. He got the money, and then it turned into the, I'll work when I want to work syndrome.
Yeah.
He should not practice.
Practice? By the way, no, that's not fair to put Allen Iverson in the same conversation. Dude did put it all. Dude, absolutely. Every time he touched the floor, I mean, he gave you every ounce he could give you. Now, the pieces around him weren't good. That's a different story. But Zeke, I mean, he takes off. He does. He shows up. He makes it look like he's working. And then, wasn't a good game. You know what I'm saying?
Iverson's YouTube videos of him playing high school football are friggin' awesome.
And that's the funny thing, because Mike Vick and Allen Iverson basically went to the same school. And they joked that, imagine if those two guys had switched sports. So
men amongst boys, really, he was incredible.
I mean, Iverson was one of these guys that was good at everything he did. So sports-wise, I'll define that way just to be safe. But
good catch.
He did get himself into a little bit of trouble in other areas, but that's the past.
But I digress.
I digress. I do hope that your guy, Mr. Injury, but got a contract, Dak Prescott, and an endorsement deal in between, by the way. I sure hope that he is, he's up for the challenge, because, I mean, Keith, the NFC East was the worst division in football probably since the modern age of football, since the Super Bowl era started. So last year. So it's anybody's division. I mean, really, honestly, there's nobody that's, they're absolutely. I mean, it's just one notch above Drek, man.
And Dak's a good guy if you meet him in person. I think I told you he signed a helmet, a jersey, and a football for my son.
Yep.
So he's a good guy. Elliott wasn't as friendly, but Dak was working the crowd.
Well, you know what? He is one of the young faces of the NFL. And well, since we're on it, and this is not tech talk, we're just talking about current events, if anything. So since we're on the topic, what is your, do you have tickets, Keith? I don't know how often you go to games.
I go from California to watch games about 4 times a year.
Okay.
I've showed you the video. We watch on the sideline. We get to be on the big board.
Now you saw Ken's photo from the Cowboy Stadium.
I did tell him about it. I did tell him about it.
Yeah.
But they told me I could do anything.
Should I go dig it up? Should we put it on the screen? I mean, okay. But
it came up as a memory. Just it was only last year that we were there.
It's true. So let me ask you this question, Keith. Back to the actual question. While I dig up the photo, I'm gonna go and find it right now. If you're, the NFL's policy, or at least individual teams' policy, I know for sure New Orleans. I know for sure the Raiders of Las Vegas, whatever that is. Yeah. They're now saying if you're not vaccinated, you're not allowed in.
Yeah, but you know why they did that, right?
Why?
Because the opposite is they're going to do the masks or the limit the number of people that can go in. So that's their thought process. I saw that. I saw that. I get what you're saying, but that's the reasoning behind it. This is weird line.
Because it's an indoor stadium. Is that the reasoning?
Yeah, well, you know how it goes with that.
I'm just saying.
I would tell you this. First of all, let me preference it, but I had COVID, survived, got the vaccine, so I'm not a anti-vaxxer.
We're happy you're with us, by the way. Yeah. Thank you.
However, you have to be very careful. The laws talks about you can ask people if they're vaccinated. That is not a HIPAA violation. And so, but once someone says they have a medical exemption, you have to stop. And that's where I'm afraid there's going to be some overlap. If I say due to a disability, due to medications I take, or I just simply say I have a medical exemption, you cannot query further and say, what's your problem? Same thing if you see me parking in a handicap zone with a placard and you go, you look okay, what's wrong with you? And that's where you start running into the HIPAA and especially more so the ADA compliance issues. So when these stadiums do that, I'm just hoping they train their front personnel that, you know, someone walks in with a medical exemption, they're in the stadium. They're done. You can't query. You can't say you look okay. You can't say, hey, you know, you look like a professional wrestler. You look like you're in shape. And I'm afraid that's where it's going to be the overlap. And I think that's where they're going to have some liability.
Well, the key part of that statement was they have to train them.
Yeah.
And we've seen lately with staff across the board, I don't care what industry it is, we've been seeing lately with the staff not being the same.
But I saw that on the plane coming home, someone said, I can't wear a mask. And I have an exemption, and she wanted to query why. And she was in front of people. The other thing the guy tried to do is say, I need you to put me in first class because I have claustrophobia.
What?
And I was going to stand up and applaud him. I'm saying, you know, that's a good try.
That's a good try. I'm trying that. That's it.
Brent asked, is a verbal announcement all that is needed? I don't know what that was about. That was.
That varies from, I think that's a state regulation. In California, you just declare it. I have a medical exemption. Same with, I have a religious exemption.
There you go, Keith. That's the photo.
That looks like Putin to me. I'm sorry.
Hey, listen.
The guy did say you could do anything you wanted.
We didn't get the photo of George breathing into the box of Jerry.
I did do that. I'm gonna full admission, Jerry. If you want to come after me, I guess, man.
But the best was they led up to it. They said it was the only place in the whole place that was blocked off, like Jerry's world. And they're like, yeah, you can't go in there because of COVID restrictions. And George is like, huh? And there was this little crack of space in the window, and George goes.
By the way, he is a nicer guy than I even expected. I'm a Cowboys fan. I really thought when we met him, he'd be a total asshole.
Well, I mean, hey, listen, there's your public guy and there's behind closed doors guy, right? Everybody has a little bit of different thing going on, but a smart guy is a guy that makes people that spends a lot of money in his building feel good.
Yeah. And by the way, I have pictures of, I'll send them to you, Ryan and I in his suite and in his crow's nest. So
it is a very beautiful building. And I'll say as an Eagles fan, I say that wholeheartedly. It was my mission to try and get to every NFL stadium. The problem is sometimes you miss the old buildings when they put up the new buildings. You just didn't get there in time. But I've been to 18 of the 32. I would do like 2 new per year, but I was thinking about going out to Las Vegas this year for Eagles Raiders, but I don't know, man. I don't like these mandatory policies. That's all. I mean, let everybody do what they got to do. Let them protect each other. But I think you're going to have a hard time getting people in the building if you're going to put universal situations like that. At least in Philadelphia, they give you the option. You want to go to the stadium? You put a mask on. There's no limit. It's outdoor building. I understand the difference. I guess Jerry World can open up the roof if they wanted to, but it's outside, do what you got to do, as long as you're following the rules. So I was lucky to get actually Ken went with me to one. It was the very first game in Pennsylvania, pro sports game that they allowed. It was Eagles at Steelers in Pittsburgh. And we're on our way to one of the Channel Strong tours, driving all the way to, what was it, Kentucky or something like that?
Yeah. No, Kentucky was the last spot, but anyway.
It was close. Cincinnati, something like that.
One of them.
And we drove all the way out from base. Like Ken came down from Boston, we got in the car or truck. We drove from Philly, and we literally stopped off and did Eagles Steelers in Pittsburgh, and it was like 7,000 people in the building. It was cool. It was different, but we saw a live game. I just was jonesing for a live game. So, I'm sorry.
Do you have an American Express card?
I do not.
They used to offer, and I went when my son was getting selected for college football, his scholarship. They used to have a thing where you paid and you went to every rivalry game, college game, including the event. So you did like the bonfire in Florida. You did the grotto and the mass before the Notre Dame game, which I guess the night before the mass and the grotto is like the big deal. And you go the night before and tap the sign because you can't do it when the team's in there, of course. But you go to every rivalry game. And so it was a package they had.
That is awesome. I would love that. By the way, Brent, your question was low attendance. I said with low attendance. Was the concession service more attentive or was it non-existent? Well, Brent, I hate to tell you, it was worse.
Yeah.
It was worse. Absolutely.
That was let me just talk about the barrel full of hot dogs.
So the game was
actually they weren't hot dogs.
Brent says, how can that be? Brent, I'm telling you, man. Listen, they did this ridiculous thing where it's like, I think it had a similar thing in New York. Like you couldn't just buy a beer. You had to have it with a meal. But apparently in Pennsylvania at the time, the geniuses that were running the show said, a hot dog counts as a meal. So you would buy a drink and they'd hand you a hot dog. Literally. Like you didn't pay for the hot dog. They just gave you the hot dog was horrible. Absolutely horrible, by the way. Yeah. Like you take a bite out of it, you spit it out. It was that bad.
It wasn't just us, by the way. There was a barrel at the edge of the thing where everybody was throwing their hot dogs in, because every time you got a beer, you got another one of these rubber dogs, and it was not good.
Now,
wow.
Let me put a wrinkle in there for you, because I think this is interesting, and we like to talk technology at times. I went to when Mike Vick was here in Philadelphia. You don't have to like the guy. I'm just historical preference. When Mike Vick was here in Philadelphia, I think it was 2011, 2012. He was a quarterback. Andy Reid was still here with the Eagles. It was Eagles at Steelers, okay? I was one of my away games, right? Just drive across the state on the turnpike, head into Pittsburgh with the rest of South Philadelphia. Okay. Believe it or not, at that time, that was the only NFL stadium that was cash only.
That's right.
You couldn't swipe a credit card or a debit card. There was 5 ATM machines for 70,000 people. And I was like, how'd you run a professional venue? It's not just games. There's concerts. There's all sorts of other stuff. And it's cash only. I didn't know. I would have brought cash. I would have brought a whole, nobody wants to go wait in line for the, I actually asked the question. I'm like, how do you keep the ATM stocked for 70,000 people? Oh, when it runs out, it runs out. I'm like, do you have a cash room? Is this like a casino? Like, how much cash is rolling through this thing? And I actually went the full distance. I went to the pro shop, all cash. I went to the box office to see if they just took cash for all cash. They would not take your credit card for anything in the building. And I'm like, I don't understand. It was 2011. It's not like it was that long ago. I don't understand how we're in the modern age and these people didn't have credit card machines.
How about that? How many stadiums do you know that the line for the ATM is longer than the bathroom?
That one.
Wow.
That one.
Did you notice at the airport? I thought this was, I was talking to a guy, they only take cards on the planes now.
Mm-hmm. They don't take cash. Yeah. It has to be credit card. Yeah.
So a guy was in the airport in Houston layover was servicing these machines that you put cash in to get a card, like a gift card type thing to use on the airline. And he was talking about, it was a franchise thing, like the old vending machine franchise. And the service fee was minimal. And I go, how's this worth the route? You know, it was like 10 or cents to get a card, you know, put $10 in. And he goes, it's unused. It's a fact that you're going to buy a $20 card.
That's amazing. That's how many gift cards go?
Well, George, think about this for a second. And Keith, you're 100% right. What happens even when you get a credit to, say, Uber Eats, even if it was the cheapest possible thing, how often are you going to get to an amount like, okay, I got $3.94 left on this credit, and I'm not going to spend it because you can't spend $3.94, and they don't allow you to use it with something else. So these cards would be the same thing. You get to a certain amount, and you just don't use it.
Yes.
Wow. It was.
Well, I know you'd find a way to use it, George. You would never give up those pennies. But what I'm saying is, in general, people do that. Like you can't use on Uber Eats, you can't use $3.94 on gas. So they're keeping that money never gets dispersed. It just doesn't get used.
Just sits in somebody's account until somebody steals it, right?
Yeah. One of our hospitality clients, which is a hotel, and if you're familiar, they sold a lot of gift cards because they had to spawn nice restaurants. And one of the audits, they had to go back and re-amortize gift cards because you can't just ever declare them as income. So they sit on your liability account forever. And they had to remake a policy that after so many months, you lose X number of dollars a month and start amortizing that income in. But I remember looking at that and going, it wasn't a little bit of money.
No.
It was like, if I give you $100 gift card for, you know, the steakhouse, and you spend $98, you're never going to go back for that $2.
That's right. Done. That's right.
So Brent says, I have a stack of gift cards. I think everybody does, Brent. And then Brent also asks, how much cash went into the pocket instead of the bank account? Well, it's funny because I did go back and write a letter to the NFL. And I did ask a lot of questions because I was just so damn intrigued. Guess what? They did have a money room at Heinz Field in Pittsburgh. Because so much cash was flowing through the place, they actually had somebody from the Department of Revenue, the Pennsylvania Department of Revenue, on site in the money room, like a casino. They had because literally every dollar that went through that building was cash. So did some disappear? I guess on the way to the cash room, maybe some fell off the cart. But yeah, I mean,
and Brent says that was the pocket.
Exactly.
He's right.
Exactly. Now, just to let you know, when we went back, me and Ken last year on the way to wherever, Middle America, they did have credit card machines finally. So, boggles my mind. Really does. I don't. It's like they were running it old school, right? It's like, nah, we don't want to take it. We don't want a percentage taken out. We want everything on the top. But I got to think the bank had a money handling fee, right? You had to bring a Brinks truck in. You had to count the cash. You had to roll. You know what I mean? Like, there's other costs involved. Whatever.
I feel like there's a movie to be had here about somebody robbing that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
wait a minute. Like they did that already, but it wasn't with
Fenway. They robbed Fenway. It was the Boston one, right? It was in
right.
Boston.
It was that one, but then there was also one where they robbed a NASCAR or something.
Oh, right. Yeah. Those are the places where the cash was like just sitting there, waiting. And if you think about it, a football stadium doesn't have the same level of security. Well, maybe now, but back then probably didn't have the same level of security as a casino. Actually, no, still now, because casinos have the best security, I think. Yeah. It's a little interesting to think about all that cash just floating around. And I always thought about that. You always find out these places that cash only didn't report more than half of it in a lot of cases.
That's the whole reason. Well, but I still go to places and they every once in a while, like, you know how during the pandemic, they're like, oh, there's a coin shortage.
Yeah.
But then like I just hit a place yesterday and they just said, sorry, because of a coin shortage. I'm like, did you never take the sign down or is there a new coin shortage?
Well, I thought it was amazing. Like everyone else, you keep a bucket of coins.
Right.
And I gave them to my daughter, to take to the bank. And she goes, I got to go back with you. She goes, because with your account, it's free. And with her account, they wanted to charge her. And I said, wait a minute. They say there's a coin shortage. You're bringing them coins. They have a sorter, and now they want to charge you. So, it's like, that's stupid. It's like with the airlines. They charge you to check a bag when the load disbursement's much better if you check a bag. It's the carry-ons that's the problem. You're going like,
no, but then if you're in the back of the plane and there's not room, they just check your carry-ons anyway.
Right.
Who sits in the back of the plane?
That's like the weight too, Keith, right? When they ask you about the weight of the bag and they want you to pull sneakers out of one bag and put it in another bag. It's still all going on the same plane. Like, come on.
This is great. Brent says the local 7-Eleven was claiming coin shortage and rounded change down to the nearest 25 cents. So basically they were gypping you. They're like, oh, we owe you 150, but we're only going to give you, or we owe you 160, but we're going to give you 150. We're going to take the 10 cents, put it in the bank. I see.
I don't see this coin shortage really. That just was the way to make people pay with their card.
Yeah.
Unless doing it by credit card. Yeah.
Of course.
All right. We've talked all fun and games. Let's get now. Of course, halfway through, we're going to talk about technology. Okay.
Hey, that's what we do. It's the community call, right? We just, we talk about everything.
Exactly. So let's bring the big hairy one out on the carpet. Ken, I'm going to call you out on the carpet here, not the you, but Microsoft, right? Came out 2022, 20 to 25% price increase on pretty much the most popular 365 SKUs. What you got to say, my friend?
Well, listen, it's like when I look at the amounts, it's not, I mean, yeah, you say 25%, but you look at the small amount of what licenses are. It's not egregious. I think it's something that can be easily rolled into the pricing that you're charging. Most people are charging their partners. And, for years, I was one of those guys on the other side as an MSP saying, Microsoft, they just don't care about us. They do this. But I've seen them do more in the last 2 years than I've seen them do in the previous 15 for the SMB and for just MSP space in general. I think for the amount of time and energy and money they're investing in security for their products and the things that they're trying to do to make it better, that small increase doesn't seem to be, to me, as big a deal. And if I was an MSP still right now, I would have just rolled. I would have. Well, first of all, my process, George, that would have already been built in anyways because I build in a buffer and do that. But I would think about whether it's worth adding it on, in my next iteration of rate, rate changes as promised, because it's not something that's big enough for me to go to all my customers and say, hey, I need to charge you an extra.
I don't know. So first question. Same thought. Brent comes back. Great questions today, Brent. Will the increase be going in the partners' pockets? No, actually, if the partners don't go back and actually collect accordingly, they're going to get squeezed, right? And some people have a hard time doing that, right?
Yeah. In some cases, in most cases, well, I guess in all cases, if you think about it from this perspective, if it's going back into the security that they're wrapping around the products and services they provide to MSPs, that in one way is coming back to the MSP space. Then there's the rebates and incentives. And if you're not getting money, I was going to say check because we don't do checks anymore either. That's like cash. But if you're not getting money from Microsoft right now, you should be, and you should definitely be reaching out to whoever you get your Microsoft from and talk about that, because there is a ton of money to be made on rebates and incentives, especially when your margins are so low on M365 and the smaller things. But things like Dynamics and Azure, the bigger stuff, they're adding some crazy back-end money, and it's yours for the taking. Microsoft, there was a number that there's millions of dollars that the MSPs don't take advantage of. You should definitely be taking advantage of that. So when I see all of that balance, and yes, it takes some work, and you have to have a good partner to do it with. You might know somebody. Not plugging it all the way, but anybody who works direct with Microsoft should know this, and there are ways to get that money back in your pocket.
So Brent says, will my gross profit be going up, or will there be a price increase and my gross profit will be going down? Well, Brent, here's the deal. As long as you're charging correctly, you shouldn't be losing money. That's the first answer. The second answer is it depends on your pricing methodology. Are you like your percentage from distribution, which unless you're big enough to buy directly from Microsoft, should be remaining the same. So technically you should be getting a little bit of a larger discount because the price is more expensive. But how are you billing your customer? How are you billing your customer?
I think you're right on this. First of all, I'm the odd one here. And I've always been, it's like, I don't expect my vendors to contribute or run my business. It's my business.
Right.
So I say that let me start there. When I sit in a boardroom at an event and people are talking to vendor, what are you going to do? And I'm going like, why don't you just give them your stock if they have to run your business? I know that's harsh and people don't appreciate that. Now, also, I think that pricing per device, pricing per user is, why don't you take out a blue light and be Kmart and go the same direction Kmart went? So when you're pricing on value added and you're pricing on business processes, I could care less if Microsoft raises their prices, because then I go back and say, this is what's happening in the industry, time for me to raise mine, which is not a line item tied to 365. It just shows a trend in the business. Microsoft's there to make a profit. They don't owe me anything. I'm lucky. I would sell 365 just to keep other people out of my accounts, by the way.
No, fair. The good news here, to Brent's point, I understand Microsoft publishes their pricing retail. That's correct. There is a retail price point. So just to make sure we're on the same page, since everybody's, just to be clear, like the easy part for maybe the first time I can remember in recent history is articles like this. It's out there. They're putting their news out there. So like, and I'm not a CNBC fan by any means, but like take this link, send it to your customer and say, hey, FYI, next year, this is happening. Or to Ken's point, hey, there's already an automatic price escalator and we're just going to use that to cover the difference. Or again, it just comes down to, you need to go back to your customer and say, hey, you're occupying these licenses. Microsoft has made a change. We're passing that change on to you. Here's the link, public knowledge. Let us know if you have any questions. And like, as of this date, the price will be this. I mean,
I would agree. I would agree with you, George. I would just caution people, and Keith made a great point. I wouldn't make it common practice to every time a price goes up that you're going to your customers and saying, hey, this is happening and I got to hit you with this. I like Keith's approach, and that's the approach that I took. Was I had it built in, and I was aware of those changes that are going to happen, right? The only ones that nowadays where I might have to go back to my customers if I was still as MSP is if this big security thing hits and we know we need this cost and it goes up by thousands of dollars, then that's something my company shouldn't have to absorb, and then I pass that on.
But Ken, I mean, I know everybody's at a different size, everybody's at a different place.
I get it.
But
I get it.
You and I have run into guys on the road that are doing $1 million a month in Office 365 subscriptions. Yep. I mean, that 20% is now $1.2 million per month. I mean, that's not a small, that's $200,000 a month.
Yep.
Yeah, but you look at it, you say, in a way, Microsoft's pricing is mutually exclusive of mine because they don't do what we do.
Right.
No,
it's like
you're right.
So you say going like, if you Microsoft's retail pricing, it'd be like, I could buy I'm doing home improvements right now, so my mind is stuck. I could have bought a ceiling fan and tried to figure out how to put it up in the damn ceiling, and it had been crooked and ugly and not worked, and I'd have to return it for a new one. Or I just hire a guy that knows what he's doing and have it done right and do what I do better. And I think that's where we sit as, I hate the word MSPs because I saw an air conditioning company call themselves an MSP as well. But that's what we're doing as technology enhancer.
Rewind. What are you talking about?
I'll take a picture. It's a sign on the street. I'll take a picture of it next time and post it. It's MSP, Managed Service Providing Air Conditioning and Heating.
No.
Hey, just remember, George, the last people that where AC company were definitely affected the MSP space was the Target AC folks. Right?
Yeah.
The Target breach.
I remember. But in this case, these people are utilizing the term in their marketing.
Right.
This is craziness. Okay.
Yeah, but what made it ours, which is a different story. I mean, I don't even know what it means. But what you look at is you're helping them sit on their core competencies and do what they do best. And you go, so when someone says Microsoft offers that for $15 a month, and just, I always go back to the blue light. Do you buy your clothes at Kmart, or do you go to Nordstrom's where they're ready on a rack when you walk in? Or do you sit in the back of the plane, or do you sit down and relax and take a breath while everyone else is loading?
What do you? Do you only fly first class there, Keith?
That's a baited question. Yeah, yes, because I think my time's worth more. I don't want to wait. I don't want to be stressed in line where I don't want to have to worry if I have a place to put my luggage and they're going to take it from me. I can sit there and do, when they're loading a plane, be on my laptop or my iPad, answer 3 emails that probably it's going to make more than the difference between the ticket.
Okay.
I don't do the first class thing probably ever, but I do bump myself up. I agree with you, Keith. I'm always on the plane first. I'm always in my spot. I have my stuff up above because of that very reason. I don't feel like being stressed about whether my bag's going to be up above me or somebody stole my spot and doing all that. And definitely it's because of time. I'd rather be sitting down on my phone answering questions than standing in line freaking out about whether or not I'm going to get on that plane with the space.
I'll give you an example. Picking up at the airport and someone was on the plane with me and said, "Do you want to share an Uber?" And I said, "I don't do Uber. I don't know if they're clean, dirty." And he goes, "Do you have a car waiting for you?" And I said, "Yeah, you can join me." And as we were talking on the way there, I said, "Now, for $100, I had a car waiting, help me with my luggage. What's the difference? I mean, how much isn't that worth $100 worth 20 minutes of your time and the convenience and someone, you know?"
Well, nowadays it is because you're not going to get an Uber or a Lyft to come pick you up properly. So yeah, I had to do a similar thing to make sure that my family got to the airport for our trip on vacation because there were no Uber or Lyfts that were going to come. So I had to hire a car service, which I knew I could depend on. I didn't have to panic that morning. So from that standpoint, I definitely saw that because there were no cars available.
Well, on top of it, you're taking your family on vacation. It's time for you to recharge. And doesn't that just a value add to your vacation? Get picked up on a limo at the home, dropped off at the terminal. Don't have to screw with, all the airports were insane. Driving around the airport's almost as bad as picking up your kids from school. A mother waiting for her kids in the Suburban is like a terrorist. It's the most dangerous thing in the world.
I mean, Keith, you're going to be one of these guys. I just like one on Facebook the other day. Like like it's the car that turns into the plane that turns back into the car. Like, why even go to the airport?
Yeah. And so, you look at, you say, when you're selling your time as value, and that's what you're selling to your customers, your time has value.
Yeah. Brent actually, it's right in, he says, "I don't see minor price changes as an issue as much as people struggling with the concept of another monthly expense. How do you get them beyond that mindset?" I mean, Brent, the cool part about the monthly expense thing, everybody in every industry is doing it. So I think people are pretty much on the idea that it's coming from every angle, and like that's going to be the expectation rather than the exception, right? I mean,
I would give Brent some advice, and I don't know Brent, and I hope he doesn't take it personally. Stop selling IT as an expense, and start selling as an enhancement. When people walk around saying IT owns a network, I say you're full of doggy poo-poo. Sales owns a network. You sit in front of a CFO and say, "Here's so much money, who can have it? The guy that brings an income or the guy that spends money?" And the guy that brings an income is going to win 100% of the time. So quit selling yourself as an expense. Sell yourself as a business enhancer that's sponsored by the divisions of the company that are profitable. Mm-hmm. Two-factor authentication is not about security when you're selling it. Two-factor authentication is about making it easier for salespeople to log in on the road, to hit portals where they can hit all their business critical applications and enhance the process. The sales guy who's looking to make his quota could give a crap if you have to worry about ransomware or someone breaching the network. He says, "Help me sell faster." And once you sell him on the fact that this two-factor authentication passwordless technology is going to make his life easier, that's all he cares about. Otherwise, it sounds like, when we talk about security and we tell these people, you need to buy better antivirus, you need to buy better, you go, wait, who sold them this crap in the first place? We did. So when we go back and say, that crap I sold you 2 years ago, That's no good. You need new crap. So I think you better term it as how you're enhancing the system, enhancing the network, enhancing the processes.
He says, I always generate revenue for my customers. They still wig out over a monthly cost.
Well, I mean, listen, some people are never going to be happy, and you got to figure out if they're the right customers for you. Again, not knowing where these people are, if they're just, wigging out, but they're still good people, good customers, great. But we talk about this all the time, George. It's about value, right? And it's about, and I like to take the word sale out of almost everything we do. And I know the sales folks at PAX 8 would probably like to murder me every time I say it, but what we do doesn't need to be sold. We have to start thinking of it more prescriptive, like a doctor, because every one of these people need what we have as MSPs. They need it. And we're telling them, hey, this is what's wrong with you. And these are the things that will fix it. And the reason why they're pushing back is because of years of trying to sell like used car salesmen in this space. And we need to shift that mindset. We have to shift away from that, right?
I use that word too often.
And George, how many times do you think my doctor paces back and forth when I'm going to going to his office thinking, oh God, what do I got to sell Ken today? It's not that way. And by the way, when I get there and he tells me that I'm overweight, I have diabetes, I have this, I don't go, yeah, but I only want that blue pill. I don't want those other pills. Like that's the mentality that we're in the space right now. We need to pull away from that space where they tell us as MSPs what they want instead of we have prescriptives saying this is what you need.
There's a difference between selling technology and saying, do you want fries with that? And I think we have to.
But hold on, I think there's a demarcation, guys, right? The doctor, the lawyer, right? I mean, you're going to somebody to talk about something that you think you don't know enough about, and you're trying to see somebody to give you that expert advice. For some reason, the IT person is still relegated as the guy that goes underneath the desk and fixes the cord rather than the person that's actually
that's on George. That's on us as a community. Yeah. That's on us. We have to do that. And my line, right? And my line is from a standpoint of PAX 8 or from an MSP perspective was always, I don't need your business. I value it. And there's a difference between needing it and valuing it. And we have to get into that mindset. Plus, not every customer is a good fit for what we do, right? We have to be able to say, if these people don't get what we do or value what we do, maybe it's not a fit as a customer, right?
Exactly. And George, I think I've shared this with you before, but for Brent's, and it's anecdotal, but put it in the context it is. First year we put in the dispatch system in the Port of LA. We have to go back and testify in Washington on the value of the system. And we don't charge per server, per user, and we've been through that already. So that part doesn't matter. The guy testified that in the first year, we saved the port complex $4.8 million that year. And I leaned over him and said, until I charge you $4.7 million a year, shut the F up. Now, I know that's an exaggeration and because I have a relationship with him and all that. But that's kind of the point is, and by the way, you know how you don't get tied to being the guy who crawls under the desk and pulls cable? When that comes up, you say, we're going to hire someone that comes in and does that. And so you put value there too. And and that's what I tell, I have a couple of friends that are starting MSPs. I said, don't be that guy. Be the guy who sits there with the C levels and discusses strategy and so on. Be that guy. Because that guy gets paid a lot more. Once you're crawling under the desk and stringing cable, you've kind of put yourself, you can't say, well, how come you think I'm like that? That's what you showed him. And so we don't do we bring someone in, we're going to hire a cabling company, that's that guy. That's not this guy.
100%.
I think it's positioning.
100%.
Yeah.
No, I mean, but it's hard to make that divergence once you've set the agenda a little bit. Brent comes back and says they definitely do not see IT with the same reverence as a doctor or lawyer. You're 100% right, because I would say they take IT and make it more like a auto mechanic.
Right.
They do an actual expert.
Here's the thing.
No.
Most people think lawyers are crooks, but they still pay them. They don't question them.
Until they tell you that until they replace 30 sensors later and the car still doesn't run. But yeah.
Well, that's a mechanic.
And by the way, there's a lot of doctors in the IT business.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's the background of how you present yourself. I mean, it's like,
oh yeah. He said, Brent says their kid does that. They set up the home network. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's a prime example. When I talk to people like that, and you use your reference accounts. You said your kid set up your home network. I set up the storage unit at the Jet Propulsion Lab. Which one do you want?
Yeah.
And so, do you know security? We secure the West Coast ports. That's 72% of the trade that comes in and out of this country. That's a little deeper than I protected my Xbox.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right, a couple more things that are worth mentioning before we get to the end of the line. So, by the way, a little line item that nobody paid attention to, but is worth mentioning, completely divergent from the conversation from 20 minutes ago, but not really. As part of that 365 increase, they're now giving everybody the Microsoft audio conferencing dial-in, built into every SKU. So if you send the meeting out, it'll give you the option that somebody can dial in from a phone. So that's going to be part of all the new Office 365 upgraded SKUs after this price increase. If you find any value in that, you're getting it anyway. So know about it and talk about it, I guess. A couple other stories that I had queued up. I'm just going to sneak in here at the end. I love this headline. Yep. Return the money. How about that? So somebody stole $610 million from a cryptocurrency platform and they returned it back. That never happens. Usually,
that sounds like something behind the scenes may have triggered that decision. Maybe it was the wrong cryptocurrency group, and they, knew some things.
But I just saw this. I was like, I don't think Matt Lee would even be. I think he would be surprised reading this headline because
it's definitely somebody who maybe knew somebody and had a conversation. Oh, the money's back. The money's back.
50. I agree. And then, again, in the same breath, security, even Microsoft has problems. Here you go.
Oh, yeah.
38 million records from Power Apps were out there. So there is no silver bullet, right? Everybody had like that. And that's the thing. Everybody's being pressure tested because the bad guys are always trying to find an angle in. So just look at these two side by side, right? Hey, bad thing happened. Hey, bad thing happened, but they got their money back. I mean, it's a very interesting world we all live in.
Yeah, that second, the thing about Microsoft relates to my son set up my home network. Your son set up your home network. We live and breathe this. We have to be a dynamic industry.
Brent says, there's no silver bullet. What about the Lone Ranger? Here's the problem, okay? People are still learning, right? Like there's one thing when the provider's platform needed to be designed differently. It's another thing when somebody's still trying to learn something and they just didn't know what they didn't know. But the outcome is the same. Somebody gets injured in the end, right? So
yeah, and George, I would say, I'm not going to say, I don't want to say everybody, but what happens here is a lot of us got into this industry one way or another. We hung a shingle, called ourselves the MSP, which I agree with Keith a bit, but it's the name that's been given. So we've stuck with it for a while. Hung a shingle, called ourselves MSPs. The difference between the ones who get it and the ones who don't is the ones who get it realize, holy crap, we don't know it all. And we need to learn a lot and really fast. Between the other people who are like, hey, I'm an IT guy. I'm smart. I got this. I know all this. And aren't picking that stuff up.
Or partner with the right people.
Right.
And
what I'm saying, Keith, is that's 100% accurate. Right. The people who are saying we're either going to learn this or partner with the right people compared to the people who are just like, we got this. We're smart. I'm smarter than you. I know this. That's the harsh part of what's going on with some of these MSPs.
Yeah, exactly.
So the moral of the story is you can't, you're never done, right? Nope. There always is the next thing that has to happen, and you constantly have to reevaluate and you have to figure out what is and what isn't working. And unfortunately, that probably means you're going to have to lean on other people because you probably can't learn it fast enough in certain instances.
There's no way. It's just coming in too fast, too furious. Talk to the right people. And by the way, work with your community. This conversation right here. Yeah, we talked about football stadiums. We talked about bad food. We talked about IT. We went around but this community of people is who you should be referring to. Not just go out to a social media and spray, hey, I need this. Talk to the people, get to know them personally. I wouldn't have went where I went. I wouldn't have sold my MSP or helped the other MSPs I work with grow without the people in this community. And, someone like Keith just jumping on here and adding his input, it's important. So make sure you're going out and getting the help from the people who are out there that are willing to give the help.
And the specialization helps, to Brent's point. Yep. When you sit there and say, there's a security, remember, people don't understand our industry. It's our job to teach them. We have in our company, a security, developers, database administrators. And when you try and be the guy, I always tell people when they ask me about starting, I said, you don't wear a red cape. You don't have an S on your chest. Quit trying to save the world and do what you do and bring in the specialists for the rest. And that enhances your pricing anyway. That does make you the doctor. That does make you not the landscaper out front. That makes you a specialist. And you bring in the right people and you charge dearly for it because they know what they're doing. And there's a lot of components to our business. And, we have to appreciate it.
100%. Keith, you're busting my bubble. I just had a cape clean, says Brent.
It's okay, Brent.
Brent has sock, not a cape.
I think I'm Batman, so that's all right. Yeah.
Well, what an interesting show. We went all over the place. But quick housekeeping on the way out the door. MSPinitiative.com, where this session, every other session we've recorded since March of 2020 are there. Just give us a few hours. This will be online. Also, the Channel Strong Tour. We are coming to the Southwest. So on the back end of September, if you're in, California, for sure, Phoenix, Salt Lake, Vegas, like that whole Southwest.
Denver.
Yep. We're coming out. Channel Strong Tour on their MSPinitiative.com. You'll see it. And then lastly, we do a monthly prize giveaway with 10 vendors. This week is the chance to get your name in there. Again, pretty good chance of winning something. Just got to raise your hand. No purchase necessary. Just fill out the form and your name is in the hat. So we really appreciate everyone for Brent, why are you there now? We really appreciate everybody for watching this. Again, Tuesdays, Thursdays, 1:00 Eastern time. And hopefully we'll see you in person at an event soon near you.
And make sure you let me know when you're in California.
It's right on the website.
September 13th.
Okay.
Yep.
13th to the 24th.
Yep.
13th to the 24th. You'll see all the cities and dates there.
Okay. Cool.
All right, my friend. You got it.
All right.
Have a good one, guys.
Bye, guys.
See you later. Bye.